We will be studying Canto 3, the status quo, Chapter 6, the creation of the universal form, verses 4 and 5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to pay my respectful obeisances to each and every person who's here. Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. I'm not as prepared as normal. Sorry about that, but we have a skeleton here. Oh, thank you, Nagapatni. Speaking into the microphone is good. I'm always on Maharaj about it, and I'm not following my own demands. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So we are doing Srimad Bhagavatam 3, 6, 4 first. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And here's that first word that Maharaj spoke about yesterday, Prabhuda. So about very intelligent, very perceptive, very aware. Prabhuda, Karma, Daivena, Prabhuda Karma, Daivena, Trayovimshatiko, Ganaha, Trayovimshatiko Ganaha, Prerito, Janayat, Swabir, but Prerito Janayat Swabir, Matrabir, Adipurusham, Matrabir Adipurusham, Prabhuda Karma Daivena, Trayovim Shatiko Ganaha, Prerito Gyanayat Swabir, Matrabir Adipurusham. Everyone? Prabhuta Karma Daivena, Tamyovim Shatiko Ganaha, Verito Janayat Swabir, Matrabir Adipurusham, Prabhuta Karma Daivena, Trayovim Shatiko Ganaha, Parito Janayat Swabir, Matrabir Adipurusham, Prabhuta Karma Daivena, Trayovim Shatiko Ganaha, Prerito Gyanayat Swabir, Matrabir Adipurusham, Prabhuda Karma Daivena, Trayovimshatiko Ganaha Prerito Ganayat Sabir Matrabir Adipurusham Prabhuda Karma Daileya Trayovimshatiko Ganaha Prerito Ganayat Sabir Matrabir Adipurusham. Anyone else? Prabhuda, awakened. Karma, activities. Daivena, by the will of the Supreme. Jayaha, Vimshatikaha, by the 23 principal ingredients. Ganaha, the combination. Preritaha, induced by. Janayat, manifestation. Swabi, by his personal. Matrabi, plenary expansion. Parusham, the gigantic universal form. Visvarupa. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai. When the 23 principal elements were awakened to action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form, or the Virata Rupa, body of the Lord, came into existence. Repeat after me. When the 23 principal elements were awakened to action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form, or the Vishwarupa, body of the Lord, came into existence. Purport. The Virata Rupa, or Vishwarupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, which is very much appreciated by the impersonalists, is not an eternal form of the Lord. Interesting point. So even still, Krishna says, time I am. So still, everything is under the control of the Lord. It is manifest by the supreme will of the Lord after the ingredients of material creation are awakened to action. Lord Krishna exhibited his Virata Rupa or Vishwarupa to Arjuna just to convince the impersonalist that he is the original personality of Godhead. When you think about it, it's like everything is within him, and he gave a graphic example how it really is. It's him, in every way. He's exhibiting this eternal, or this non-eternal, but taking all the material energy, and he's in all of it as a universal form of the Lord. It's such a macrocosmic, gigantic situation. He's in each atom, in each one of our hearts, and he also personalizes the big, big manifestation of himself in the universe with this Purush, this Virata Rupa. Krishna exhibited the Virata Rupa. It is not that Krishna was exhibited by the Virata Rupa. So Krishna showed it. It's not that the Virata Rupa showed him. So we have to get that straight. It's like we don't have this proverbial, was it the chicken or the egg problem? We don't have that. We know everything's coming from Source Krishna. So we're fortunate in this way. It's all the mystery is out. There's one Krishna, and everything is coming like from him, specifically. The Virata Rupa is not, therefore, an eternal form of the Lord exhibited in the spiritual sky. It is a material manifestation of the Lord. Think about that. He's actually so kind. Like people will say, I want to see God. I need to see God. And he's so kind. He actually makes himself visible to us. He's so merciful. He's in each of our hearts. He's externally in the universal form of the Lord, and in the Archa Vigraha, or the worshipable deity in the temple, is a similar manifestation of the Lord for the neophytes. So that's the situation here. He comes in the deity form. He comes in the universal form of the Lord, and then for us, so that we can actually focus ourselves on worshiping him, he comes in the Archa Vigraha. So this is so much mercy. He even if we glide down into a dog body or a worm body, he goes with us as the Paramatma. He goes with us everywhere we go, no matter what condition of life we're in. And he is appearing as the deity for us. In spite of their material touch, such forms of the Lord as the Virata and Archa are all non-different from his eternal form of Lord Krishna. Because we can say, people can get kind of confused, like the deity isn't, the deity is made of marble, or the deity may be made of 9 metals, or the deity may be, he is authorized the form of the Lord according to the scriptures to manifest so that we can focus on him. And he authorizes this. He's the one who's creating everything. Text 5, Parena Vishata Vishwasmin Matraya Vishwashrigana Chukshoban Yonam Asadya Yasmin Lokascha Racharaha. The translation: as the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all moving and non-moving creations rest. Repeat after me. As the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all planetary systems and all moving and non-moving creations rest. So everything is in him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The elements of cosmic creation are all matter and have no potency to increase in volume unless entered into by the Lord in his plenary portion. This means that matter does not increase or decrease unless it is spiritually touched. Matter is a product of spirit and increases only by the touch of spirit. The entire cosmic manifestation has not assumed its gigantic form by itself as wrongly calculated by less intelligent persons. There's all these concepts, Big Bang. The materialists, they somehow think that matter is created out of matter, and they don't give credit to Krishna. Like Srila Prabhupada says, wrongly calculated by less intelligent persons. As long as spirit is within matter, matter can increase as needed, but without the spirit, matter stops increasing. You can see, as soon as the spirit leaves the body, the only thing that happens is the rotting things take over. When that driver is gone, the body just goes into smelliness, going back to the earth. For example, as long as there is spiritual consciousness within the material body, a living entity in the material body of a living entity, the body increases to the required size. But a dead material body, which has no spiritual consciousness, stops increasing. So there's that growth. We're growing, we're expanding. Even we're expanding in consciousness, in awareness. And there's always activity. Wherever there's a soul, there's always action. There's always feeling. We're always feeling. And when we take that feeling and we dedicate it at the lotus feet of the Lord, that I feel for you, Krishna. I have eyes for you, Krishna. I love you, Krishna. And we focus everything on the one Krishna, then all the other problems seem to pale. And then we seem to be able to do almost anything. We can do whatever Krishna wants us to do. Whatever Krishna wants, he empowers us to do. So when we become in alignment with the will of the Lord, nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, importance is given to the spiritual consciousness, not the body. It's simply a vehicle. What is it? I'm having now a little tiny Nissan Versa. It's completely adequate. But another time we had a giant conversion van and it did all kinds of fancy things. But am I that van? Am I this body? No, I'm neither. I'm neither the Versa, I'm not the conversion van, I'm not the Cadillac, BMW, I'm none of these things. We're simply driving around in a vehicle. So real importance is given to the spirit soul, that which is essential and eternal. In the entire cosmic body increased by the same process that we experience in our small bodies. So there's a microcosmic situation and a macrocosmic situation. It's said in the scriptures that the soul is, the subtle body fits on the soul like a glove, and the material body fits around the subtle body like a glove. If we have pig consciousness and we're just eating and slovenly and everything, we get a pig body suitable. Or if we have strong desire for sex, we can become a pigeon. We have so many pigeons here. They could have been devotees in the previous life. They're getting prasad every single day. They might have been very addicted to sex life, but still they get the benediction to come and get Mahaprasad in our backyard. They live around here. One should not foolishly think that the individual infinitesimal soul is the cause of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. Again, Prabhupada reiterates, no, this little teeny us is not the cause of the big creation. We have to get it straight. We're simultaneously one, but very different in size. It's a wonderful thing. The universal form is called the Virata-rupa because the Supreme Lord is within it in his plenary portion. So he manifests in this way just to personalize, to let us know that, yes, I'm even in this material creation. Look at my glory. And what did Arjuna say when the universal form appeared? Oh my goodness, Lord, this is overwhelming. Please. It was so much easier to relate to his friend Krishna that played the flute, that drove his chariot. And if we were all like Arjuna and just let Krishna do the driving of our chariot and just surrendered to the will of Krishna, then no matter what, we would be invincible because we would be doing Krishna. So again, to look at the translation, as the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all moving and non-moving creations rest. That's all of the creations, many-headed Brahmas. We have only a four-headed Brahma here. There's many, many universes that are so much greater than this. And where I'm obsessed with news about what might affect Hawaii. Just recently I don't pay attention to news very much, but someone sent me something that was about Hawaii and I immediately paid attention because normally I don't pay attention, but this is the neighborhood that we're in. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh no. And I was writing, is this fake news? Because it's scary. And even my mother had said to me, there's a Russian ship that's off the shore of Kauai. And so this news, whether it was fake or not, was saying that the Japanese government has said that we should be careful because China wants to take, and Russia want to take over Hawaii. And so all of a sudden I was bewildered because my identity as living here got me distracted immediately. I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Okay, They haven't got me on all these conspiracy things, but they got me on this. And I'm like, what is going on? I want to know. I was worried. All of a sudden, they got my attention because you're talking about our neighborhood. So up till then, I was kind of immune, a little bit more like a lotus leaf where things were just coming off of me. But that one it hooked me, and I got bewildered by that. So then I have to come back to what is really important. It's about Krishna all the time. He's the one. And Prabhupada said over and over, he said, if the atom bomb comes, we go, Krishna. Krishna has come. In every case, it's always about Krishna. For the devotees, we only have Kevala Krishna Hey. We have eyes for Krishna. Just like Srimati Radharani, she never even opened her eyes until Krishna, she was brought to the bed of her beautiful Lord Krishna. That name of Radharani, Andharupa, where she would only open her eyes to see Krishna. We have to be one-pointed like that we will only have eyes for Krishna. So there is a news flash that I just got on the internet that was saying that it was 3.42 billion year old filamentous microfossils have been found in South Africa. So look, life, 3.42 billion year old microfossils, proof of life that long ago in South Africa. And in the news of paleontology on the 15th of this month, the scientists found 14,400-year-old microbes and viruses in Tibetan glacier ice. Can you imagine being a microbe for 14,400 years frozen in glacier ice? That sounds like a stiff penalty for something. You get to be a microbe. But life is everywhere, and everything is organized according to Krishna's arrangement. And without Krishna, that virus could not exist. Those microbes could not continue to exist in that glacial ice. And then I started to think about, because this was about planetary systems too, and all this talk about black holes. There's so much going on about black holes and nebulae that are disappearing. And what is it? And so I started to read a little bit about it to try to understand. And the black hole, apparently so much of the theory is involving 0 and 1, 0 and 1, just like the way computers are developed today. It's binary code, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. It's just a whole sequence of 0, 1s. It's paint by numbers. That's all it is, really. This material universe is like a paint by numbers manifestation of pixels. It's illusion, and we're so caught up in it. We're so caught up in it. But if we were caught up in it with the knowledge that it's all happening by Krishna's will, and we were dancing and singing about Krishna's glories throughout the whole cosmic manifestation, just dancing according to his will, then there would be nothing to worry about. We would be fearless, completely fearless. If we had eyes for Krishna, the one, the only one, and everything else is 0. That's all it all is. It's 0. It has no endurance. Krishna has the eternal, he's the eternal source and the number one, he's the Mahapurusha behind it all. So here they were talking about this black hole thing in such an interesting way. I cut and pasted this little article, and it was saying that, it says, this is because it's easy to use photon degrees of freedom to encode quantum bits, qubits, that are the standard information units in quantum computing. The term degrees of freedom refers to the properties of the photons that make values that can be used in an equivalent manner to 0 and 1 in classical computers. And then I said, for devotees, obviously the one is Krishna. That's it. The one is Krishna. In this research, he said, we use polarization and orbital angular momentum, OAM, of photons as the carriers of quantum bits. Dr. Rakorian said, This distorted geometry of space-time near rotating black holes can create and manipulate quantum information encoded in beams of light that are emitted by or that are passed close to these black holes. I was reading all about how black holes start to combine and they get to be bigger and bigger black holes. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, if they're encoding information, let's record the Maha Mantra. Let's let the black holes resound with the spiritual sound vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra. And then they went on to say this is a similar process to what is happening in theoretical quantum computers. A quantum computation process consists of photons traveling throughout a setup of mirrors, beam splitters, and prisms that switch the polarization and twisted phase of photons to values that can be mapped once again to 0 and 1, he added. And it reminds me of lasers, because in laser, the first fellow, who's an Indian fellow who invented lasers, we all know about gemstone therapy, and we're astrologically prescribed different gemstones depending upon our horoscope. And this fellow, he just took a ruby rod and he shot a beam of light through this laser, and he bounced it back. Well, actually, it was through the ruby rod, and he bounced that light back and forth through it. He bounced it through mirrors and prisms. And so it built up strength in the resonance. It just, and then he released it. And that was the first laser. And so they started by this agitation with, and saying here, it reminds me of the light through a ruby rod being bounced back and forth, and one release makes a laser beam. The resonance increases its power, the back and forth of it, that back and forth of it, it increases its power. And just like Maharaj was saying yesterday, Krishna's agitating, he's churning, he's even churning himself. He's churning himself to either expand or contract by his will of manifestation. So all this science, if we don't point it to Krishna, it's useless. We can look at all this stuff, but if we don't add Krishna, it's like zero, back to square one. It's just one scientist polishing his knuckles going, I'm so cool, look what I figured out. But if they don't realize that Krishna is the source of it, and it's all ecstatically about Krishna all the time, they're totally nonsense. So to get back to the Arch of Vigraha, the manifestation of the Lord that we can actually see, worship, and focus on by His mercy in the temples. It says in Bhagavatam 1:12-9, the Lord can become bigger than thousands of universes and become smaller than an atom at the same time. He can do both. This is Krishna. He can do anything. I mean, the universe is in his mouth. Mother Yashoda looked in his mouth, and what did she see? The entire cosmic manifestation. This is Krishna. He's this kind of personality. This God of ours has everything just in his mouth. So merciful as he is, he becomes just suitable to the vision of the limited living being. That he is unlimited means he is not limited by any measurement of our calculation. He can become bigger than what we can think of, and he can become smaller than we can ever conceive. But in all circumstances, he is the same all-powerful Lord. There is no difference between the thumb-like Vishnu in the womb of Uttara and the full-fledged Narayan in Vaikuntha Dham, the kingdom of Godhead. He accepts the form of Archa Vigraha, worshipable deity, just to accept service from his different, incapable, without him we're incapable, devotees. Incapable, I love it. By the mercy of the Archa Vigraha, the form of the Lord in material elements, the devotees who are in the material world can easily approach the Lord, although he is not conceivable by the material senses. The Archa Vigraha is therefore an all-spiritual form of the Lord to be perceived by the material devotees such An archa vigraha of the Lord is never to be considered material. Oh, okay, so I am reiterating somehow back to the black hole. We've got the slides mixed up here, but that's okay. Here it's just this, it's saying here the geometry of space-time near the spinning black holes acts as in identical manner to the setup of prisms in mirrors, says Dr. Rakorian. This means that a spinning black hole writes a quantum code. I think we read this. And he was saying they have legitimate hopes to create a quantum computer. They really just need to come to the temple and worship Krishna. Without acknowledging Krishna, what good is all their so-called knowledge? They're always on the verge of something. It's amazing. Meanwhile, back at the Archa Vigraha, Bhagavad Gita 12:5, Prabhupada tells us, he said, a crude example may be given here. We may find some mailboxes on the street, and if we post our letters in those boxes, they will naturally go to their destination without difficulty. But any old box or an imitation, which we may find somewhere, but which is not authorized by the post office, will not do the work. Similarly, God has an authorized representation in the deity form, which is called Archa Vigraha. This Archa Vigraha is the incarnation of the Supreme Lord. God will accept service through that form. The Lord is omnipotent, all-powerful. Therefore, by his incarnation as Archa Vigraha, he can accept the services of the devotee just to make it convenient for the man in a conditioned life. I have an interesting story that happened to me. Actually, Atma and I, when we lived at a Hako place, the landlord, they wanted to take the deity, which we had been worshiping. There was a four-armed form of Vishnu in the wall that was an old deity that was a part of the collection of this famous artist who has a museum at the university. And we were asking if we could please buy him. We had built an altar around him. He'd been worshipped for 30 years. And the landlord didn't want to sell him to us. I even got one of the people at the museum, they would agree to come and appraise the deity. He was a four-armed form, old ancient South Indian deity. And just as he wouldn't let us take this deity or buy this deity or any way in that way, the postmaster general wrote us a letter that our post office box that we had been using for quite a while was not a valid number. It was really fascinating. You know, they said our tax map key actually belonged to the other street. And for years we had, 455. There were made up numbers somehow or other, and somehow the postmen were okay with it until they were doing like a reorganization of everything and said, well, these are really unauthorized boxes. But it happened at the very same time as the deity was being taken from us. It was really, we were actually moving out of the house too. And in the move, we wanted to buy the deity from the landlord, Jai Panchatattva. So Krishna, and that deity was an interesting situation, because when I was young and taking care of children and the deities here in the temple, and the managers wanted a Sankirtan devotee to have my room, they asked me that I could avail it to somebody who could go out and do book distribution, or I needed to do book distribution. And since I was taking care of all the book distributors' children, I said, I think I better keep doing that service. And so they asked me to move out. And Krishna provided me this adorable house with a four-armed form of Vishnu in the wall. I mean, it was like a magical, miraculous. He was saying, yes, we still are giving you shelter. We see that you want to do your service nicely. I was taking care of Jagannath and taking care of the children in the day. So I was given this it was one round walk to the temple, just so close. So Krishna showed his shelter. But at the time that we were going to move out and wanted to take the deity with us, he took away the post office box and the deity. And it was kind of magical when you think about it. We think of it as Krishna's arrangement in every case. So in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:8-22, it says, because such fallen souls cannot see anything beyond matter, the Lord condescends to enter into each and every one of the innumerable universes as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, who grows a lotus stem from the lotus-like depression in the center of his transcendental abdomen, and thus Brahma, the first living being in the universe, is born. Therefore, the Lord is known as Pankajanabi. That Panka, the lotus, and Nabi is belly button. The Pankajanabi, Lord, accepts the Archa Vigraha, the transcendental form, in the different elements, namely a form within the mind, a form made of wood, a form made of earth, a form made of metal, a form made of jewels, a form made of paint, a form drawn in sand, etc. All such forms of the Lord are always decorated with garlands of flowers, and should be a soothing, there should be a soothing atmosphere in the temple of worship to attract the burning attention of the non-devotees. Listen to this one. Always engaged in material wranglings. I love that line. You know, they're all, we here, this is a soothing atmosphere, wonderful atmosphere. And those who come here, they take shelter away from the material wranglings of the onslaughts of material nature. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, in 2.3.22 purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Sri Vigraha is the archa, or suitable, worshipable form of the Lord, and the disciple should be engaged in worshiping the deity regularly by Shringar, proper decoration and dressing, as also by Mandara Marjana. That's cleaning the temple. It's so important. The matter of cleansing the temple. That's super. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he demonstrated how important cleaning the temple. It's cleaning our heart. The spiritual master teaches the neophyte devotee all these kindly and personally to help him gradually in the realization of the transcendental name, quality, form, etc. of the Lord. Are there any questions or comments? Jai Gopal.
In the very beginning, it said that Krishna showed his Virat Rupa form to him to help the impersonalists, realize.
Yeah, the impersonalists are fond of it, that form.
Yeah. So, but when Krishna showed Arjuna the universal form, only he could see it. They said Duryodhana or a lot of the other people could not see this form. So could you comment on that a little bit?
Well, Krishna can reveal himself to who he wants, when he wants to. Just like he came into the womb of Uttara and protected Maharaj Parikshit from the Brahmastra. Nobody else could see that. It was only, and even Uttara, Krishna had gone within her womb. Only Maharaj Parikshit got the darshan of Krishna at that time to be protected by him. So Krishna's very specific. Like when Srila Prabhupada is in ecstasy and crying, and he's completely in love of Krishna, we're not able to understand. We're not seeing what he's seeing. We're in our own worlds, in our own consciousness. So, and each and every single one of us has an individual relationship with Krishna. It's Gupta, secret.
So you don't know who's seeing the form or not.
Right. We're not being given that darshan.
He just chooses not to show Duryodhana because he's the bad guy.
Yes. He didn't even get it seeing Krishna right there in front of him. Yes. He got his thigh cracked. Any other questions? Yes, Ken.
It says that the Virat Rupa is not an eternal form.
Yes.
But then at the end it says it's non-different from Krishna. So how can something that is not eternal be non-different from something that is eternal?
Well, all of the building blocks of creation, like the atoms, it says in the, I think in second canto, it talks about like the Brahmajyoti it's basically the material creation is in its unmanifest form. So it's all within Krishna. All of those building blocks remain there in the Brahmajyoti. They're just not manifest into forms as we know them. So that's simultaneously one with Krishna. It's his effulgence. And when he wants to actually enter into the universe and create by his will, everything starts assembling according to his wish, according to the way that he's moving and agitating things, or through his breath. There's so many ways in which it is described that Krishna's manifesting. So everything is within him as an eternal principle, but it comes into manifestation for a certain period of time, just as the deities, they come into manifestation. We had deities before this that they were made of paper mache. They were very easy to damage. So, but they were authorized forms of the Lord. Just like the Lord can come secretly for a moment in the womb of Uttara and completely give darshan and protection to Marsh Cricket, and then poof, disappear. Or come to Dhruva Maharaj and then disappear. Just like he comes onto this earth and then poof, disappears. But his pastimes are taking place somewhere. They're eternal. He just appears and he disappears according to his will. It's a dance. It's like a gigantic rasa dance. Is that okay? Yeah. Hare Krishna. Anything else? All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Atma?